What's up, guys? It's a live edition of the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast on the Believe Network. I'm Corey Burton. I'm flying solo. Got a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. All right. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. It is the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast on the Believe Network. I'm Corey Burton. Not joining me is Israel Troop. He's busy this week. He's getting a procedure done, and we'll see him back here next week, and we'll talk a little bit more in depth about all of the issues possibly plaguing the Georgia Bulldogs, the good news, the bad news, the ugly news, and we'll get into all of it as we go along between now and the end of the season, which is the Orange Bowl matchup against Florida State. Show is presented by Betonline.ag, your number one source for all of your sports wagering needs. If you want to bet it, Betonline.ag has it, and boy do they have it. They have props, player props, live odds, futures, whatever you want, whatever sport you want, whatever activity you want. BetOnline.ag has it. So what you need to do is head to the website, betonline.ag, or on your mobile device. There should be an app that you should be able to download. Go to that and enter the promo code. When you sign up, enter the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to get your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Again, that's BELIEVE, BLEAV, to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. So betonline.ag, it's where the game starts. So, man, there's a lot happening here with UGA, with Georgia Bulldogs, with Georgia football especially, and lots happening. The most recent stuff that broke yesterday, it turned a lot of heads, created a lot of buzz. It's Dylan Raiola, Buford quarterback, number one quarterback in the country. Dylan Raiola is now, a lot of people are forecasting him to flip his commitment to Nebraska. Let me repeat that in case you guys didn't hear that right. Dylan Raiola may flip his commitment to Nebraska. It's going to come down to the wire here, Georgia and Nebraska. Now, the reasoning would probably make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but the fact that he moved to Georgia to play at Buford is probably what has everybody up in a tizzy. The fact that it's Nebraska and they've been relatively irrelevant for a long time in the Big Ten. Now they're going to land some big fish with potentially with Matt Rule. So what Matt Rule did was he hired Dylan Raiola's dad to be the offensive line coach. So that was a move. That was a pivotal move for the Cornhuskers in the fact that, hey, maybe Dylan actually does want to go play with his dad on staff. Now, we all know that college coaching is extremely volatile, and one bad season and you're replacing your O-line coach, and now you're stuck in Lincoln. So what I think might happen, I think he'll be able to hold his commitment. I don't know. Like, I think he's got to think long term here. So if I'm Dylan, maybe I think that, hey, what if this all ends for my dad? So going to play with your dad as the coach, as the offensive line coach, can't be the only reason you commit to a school, because we all know, like I said, how volatile, how unpredictable, how fickle college coaching can be. Those guys move around like crazy. The way that coaching firings have happened, it has trickled down. You're starting to see NFL coaches getting fired like NBA coaches midway through the season. Like, they can't even make it halfway into the season, some of them. Same with NBA coaches. Now you're starting to see college coaches get fired like NFL coaches used to, where if they don't produce right away, you got one season basically, and you could be out, right? There is no patience there. Now, high school coaches are getting the same level of patience and expectations that college coaches had. Now, a lot of these high school coaches are getting fired for not performing in high school. Don't get me started on high school and judging high school coaches because there's so many other factors besides just the sport of football. If it was an even playing field, sure, you could judge wins and losses, but you can't, right? You can't. So I digress. You can't. I'm not going to get into high school football right here, but my point is, what I'm trying to drive at is that Dylan Raiola needs to make the best decision long term for himself, right? What is the best fit for him? What is the best fit for his future? Is that Georgia playing in the SEC with the NIL money that Georgia can provide, with the opportunities close by to Atlanta, the fact that they have been a football factory as far as cranking people out to the NFL? Does that all come into play? That's the reason he probably committed in the first place, right? Let's be honest. He's probably got a mega NIL deal on the table. He also probably has a pretty sizable chance of playing from day one and being a major factor in the NFL at the next level. So all that comes into play, right? Now, that doesn't mean Nebraska can't put NFL players out. Right? I'm not saying Georgia puts them out, Nebraska doesn't. Because the NFL, wherever you are, doesn't matter. If you're good enough, they're going to find you, right? Look at all these small college guys. So maybe that's off the table. I don't know. But there's a lot of decisions at hand. There's a lot of factors at hand when you're dealing with a decision of this magnitude, right? And we're gonna figure out at the early signing period, which I think is next week. I think it's the 20th. We're gonna figure out at that point what Dylan Raiola does. So he's got a week. Coaches are hitting the recruiting trail hard. They're doing all their visits. They're doing everything they can in their power to get in their last minute pitch of, hey, why you should come here, why you should go there. Like all the college coaches are doing that. So Matt Rule's probably got a good sell. They've probably got a good package for him. It helps that his dad is the offensive line coach, so we'll see. Stay tuned. But Dylan Raiola is nothing short of talent, and I'll leave this topic on that. If he does end up committing to Nebraska, please, 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 please do not trash the kid. Do not trash Dylan. This is a tough decision, right? He's got a lot of factors to think about. Nebraska is a blue blood. Nebraska has a lot of tradition, not lately, but they have a lot of tradition. His dad played there. His dad now coaches there. There's a lot that they have going in their favor. Matt Rule is a good coach. He flamed out for the Carolina Panthers. I think that's apples and oranges anyway. He was really good at Baylor. He's really good at building a program at the college level. I just think that's just his thing. So I'm interested to see what he's going to do with Nebraska in the brand new Big Ten. So there's going to be a lot of exposure in the brand new Big Ten as well. So maybe that factors in too. So please, please, please do not trash the kid. He's making a tough decision, like I said, and this will be something that he's going to have to live with. And if he ends up going to Nebraska, I wish him well, except for when he plays Georgia, or if they play Vanderbilt, or if they play any team that I like, which is not many. But as long as they're not playing Georgia, I will root for Dylan Raiola to do well. All right. But my prediction is I think Georgia's going to hold on the commitment because the SEC is the highest level of football. It is the highest level of training for the NFL. And I think he'll end up doing that. So stay tuned for that. That's happening next week probably. So we'll know more about that. We'll react to that as well. So it's going to get interesting. It's going to get real interesting. All right, now that we got that out of the way, the transfer it's also transfer portal season. Excuse me, I got tongue-tied a little bit. It's also transfer portal season. So Georgia has lost a lot into the portal, right? Most notably Brock Vandagriff, and I think, as far as I know, I think he's the only one that's found a home so far. He immediately signed to Kentucky, which, I'll be honest, that is a great pickup for Kentucky. I think that when you get a quarterback as athletic as Brock, as with as good of an arm as Brock, he's got to be somewhat polished. He was polished coming out of high school. He just couldn't quite overtake Carson Beck for the starting quarterback job this year. He was never going to overtake Stetson Bennett, but he couldn't quite overtake Carson Beck for the QB1 job. And He may have been losing footing to Gunnar Stockton because I think both of those guys are supremely talented. Georgia's got a really good quarterback room, and it was inevitable. It was just a matter of which one was going to transfer, especially if Carson Beck decided to return for his last year of eligibility, which I think this is a sign that he probably is, because I think if he was leaving and they knew that, then Brock Vandagriff would be there competing for the QB1 job at Georgia. I don't think he would have ever left. He's from Athens, went to Prince Avenue. He's a local guy. So the thought that he would leave wouldn't make sense if the QB1 job was going to be up for grabs, right? Maybe he loses in the spring. Maybe he goes in the spring transfer portal if he were to lose out to Gunnar Stockton or Dylan Raiola or whoever the next quarterback is in that scenario. So, nonetheless, Brock Vandagriff do a great job at Kentucky. So I'm excited to see kind of what he does. I'm happy for him. I think he'll do well. I hope he goes 11-1 every year, and that one is against Georgia. I'm just going to root for my team. I'm going to root for him to throw for a bunch of yards, but not score enough points to beat Georgia. So that's one. Jackson Meeks was one that I was somewhat surprised with. Well, I was surprised and not surprised. They recruited over him in the portal a little bit. He had some opportunity, but it just didn't quite work out for him. As far as the playing time goes, I think with what plagued him is I just don't think he was explosive enough. Right? He's a really big frame, really big target, pretty physical guy on the edge. I think Israel was very impressed with him when he went in the spring, but it just, I guess he just felt like he needed to jump away for a little bit to be able to find some opportunity to get some good playing time. So I think when you go and you look at that, those factors, I think it makes total sense. So Jackson Meeks is one that I'm not thrilled that we lost. I wish he would have stayed. I think he's going to be really good. I can't wait to see kind of where he ends up. Right, I can't wait to see kind of where he ends up. So I'm excited to see that. There's 15 total, if you believe that. All right, so there's 15 total guys. So Jackson Meeks actually update signed with Syracuse. I just refreshed it. The update is that he signed with Syracuse. Okay, and that's a great get for them, right? That's going to be a really good fit for that. So, yes, I'm excited about that. I'm also reading about Dylan Raiola. There's some updates that will happen frantically between now and then. They're hearing, this is according to Jed May with UJSports.com, they're hearing that Dylan Raiola is not coming to Georgia, so brace yourself for that. There's nothing is finalized, and this thing could change on a dime. It could probably change 4 or 5 times today, even. But as we continue to get information on that, I think the Dylan Raiola dream of him playing in a Georgia uniform is at least going to be delayed a year or two, because I think he's going to end up signing with Nebraska, and the only chance would be if he ever hit the portal and got to us that way. So it's looking a little bleak there, but again, that's the update. Jed May, UJSports.com, about a minute ago, put that out. So you heard it here first. All right, Austin Blasky is also an Alu Ba, are 2 names from the offensive line that are in the portal. So no big losses there. Austin Blasky was actually looking for some starting playing time. But when I say no big losses, I mean loss in quantity, not quality. Blasky is a really good offensive lineman, and wherever he lands they're going to benefit immediately. So Austin Blasky, go to Vanderbilt. All right, Darius Smith, outside linebacker. Kind of surprised about that one, but I guess he wanted some opportunity. I guess he felt like he wasn't getting any look, especially as thin as we were at that position. Defensive lineman Jonathan Jefferson signed with SMU. Good. That'll be a good get for them. CJ Madden, also another outside linebacker. So it looks like we're going to have to looks like we're going to have to hit the portal for outside linebacker. That's going to be a position of need. Jared Zirkle, no surprise there, lost his battle to Peyton Woodring. Would also like to go kick somewhere. Don't blame him there. Cornerback Nyland Green, that one stings, man. That's our guy. That's the official Believe in Georgia Dogs cornerback. That's our guy, Nyland Green. That's Israel's guy, especially. So that one hurts a little bit. Mekhi Muse, looked like we saw in real time him losing his punt return job in the SEC championship. So not much run at wide receiver. He's going to look to get an opportunity somewhere. Certainly don't blame him there. Don't know where he's leaning, but it'll be interesting. It'll be definitely interesting to see kind of where he lines up. EJ Lightsey and Xavier Sori at the linebacker position. Those guys, Xavier Sori had a lot of promise coming out of IMG. Bounced around between inside and outside linebacker. Couldn't quite get his footing. I guess just needs a fresh start, fresh opportunity. When you have a giant group of 5 stars, you're going to lose guys. You're going to lose some talented guys. And this list looks like it hurts, but that's just kind of the nature of the beast here. You're going to lose some guys. So Xavier Sori is one of those that I hate to see go. I thought he had a lot of potential. I guess it never really worked out, or at least in his mind, it never really worked out. So, and just a disclaimer: I wish all of these guys well. They did their best and they tried their hardest for the University of Georgia, and that's where we're going to leave it. Logan Thomas, Zeed Haynes, and Jameer Moten are the others that are in the portal as well. So those are the guys that are in. Chad Lindbergh is somebody that could be in. Gunnar Stockton is not. He's going to stay. I think those are the only ones. So we'll update you as we go. So Gunnar Stockton is staying. I was hoping we were going to have another Vanderbilt situation. So I was hearing rumors of us landing AJ Swan in the portal too. So that could lend itself to us adding depth after potentially losing Dylan Raiola. So stay tuned for that. Right. Transfer portal. It's a crazy thing with the portal. You know, it's so many in, so many out. It makes it difficult. You know, and I'll talk about some additions here coming soon as well. But it just makes it so hard to kind of get connected with these guys like you could in the back in the day, and it just makes it difficult there. So we got some comments here. So Derek, how are we looking with ETN and Humphreys? Is Georgia in good shape with them? So Derek, if you're still on with me, yes, very good shape. I think London Humphreys and ETN, I think they both end up as dogs. I was just about to get into potential portal updates. So I think ETN has been all dog since he entered the portal. I think he had that in mind. He was very close to signing here out of high school, picked Florida instead. But I think he is. I think he's definitely in. Humphreys, I think he's in too. That's my prediction. There's not been any updates that would be definitive on. Yes, he's signing with Georgia, but I think from the start he wants to get elite receiver development, and he's seeing what we're doing at that position with BMAC and the way that those guys are being developed and the way those guys are making plays. I think the biggest guy they saw that made some. I think what people are seeing is like guys like Ra Thomas, who, you know, they're a certain receiver in a specific scheme, and they come in and they make plays. Dominic Lovett, Lad McConkey. Like Lad McConkey was not supposed to succeed coming out of high school. If he listened to all his doubters, he was too small, all the things that you would expect out of a 3-star receiver, not national championship caliber guys. Like that's why you're rated as a 3-star, because that's like kind of where you're projected. But that's also lends itself to say this thing ain't an exact science either, right? Guys way overperform their projections, and Some guys, there's some 5 stars that perform like 2 stars, and there's some 2 stars that are Hall of Famers. Like, it works both ways. And there's 5 stars that are 5 stars and Hall of Famers. There's 2 stars that are 2 stars. So you just got to kind of go. London Humphreys sees the way these guys are improving as they step foot in on campus, and he's gonna see that, hey, I can get a piece of that pie. So he wants development at that position. I think he will certainly get it. ETN, that guy's elite. And since we got so thin at running back real quick, there is absolutely room for him to come in. And I think losing Dejon Edwards is a big deal. I think when he graduates, you got to have somebody next in line. Trevor Etienne is that guy. He's going to waste away at Florida, right? Because they're going to go through one more year of Billy Napier, which to me, not the answer. You're going to go through another year of a coaching search, getting a brand new coach, somebody you got to get used to. Man, I'm going to go to this well-established, well-oiled machine that just cranks out running backs. And so I'm very, very excited about that. And so yeah, I'm good with that. And I think those two guys are definitely dogs. And I'm fired up too, Derek. I really am. So with a few minutes left in this program, let's take a look at the season that was leading up to the Orange Bowl. It was a really, really good season, really positive season with a lot of potential. And it just didn't end the way that we wanted it to, right? And it left a lot of sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, right? You go through the season, you play down to your competition, and then when you get up for an opponent, you blow the doors off of them. And the way the SEC championship was, and I think it had a lot to do with it being Nick Saban. I think it had a lot to do with just kind of how we've played Alabama over the last 5 times we've played them, 1-4 over the last 5. Just how we play them, how tight we play them, how tight we get with play calling, things like that. And that might be more on Kirby as far as like how he is dictating how the flow of the game is going to go. But if you look at how Mike Bobo called that game, if you look at how conservatively Glenn Schumann called that game, and then you look at all the other past games, it does match up. The last time we lost was a similar type game where you're left scratching your head. You're like, we haven't played that way all year. What are we doing? And to say Bobo is terrible and trash and all that stuff is a complete lie, because he's not. He's a really good coordinator. But sometimes I think when you get out of rhythm, it's very easy to say, let's go conservative until we kind of figure it out. And then we just never really figure it out, because getting your tail kicked up front doesn't exactly help you too much. So I was disappointed with the game plan that we came out with, because the first scripted series, we marked right down 83 yards and put it across the goal line. And I thought that was how the game was going to go. And it didn't the rest of the way, because I think we were banged up. We knew we were banged up, and we played like we were banged up and trying to protect. And it's just not the case. And I think we should have came out aggressive, because this was a win or not be in the playoff type situation. So I think in those scenarios, you do have to go down swinging a little bit. And I don't feel like we did. And then when we finally did, it was too little too late. So, yeah, we look very, very sharp. And I think when you break it down like that, it's like, okay, why do we? So you got to kind of get back to the root of the problem. Why do we play so conservatively against Alabama? Well, they're good, right? We know that. We know we're not going to be able to get some of the same looks and same shots that we could get on Kentucky, Ole Miss, some of the other teams on our schedule. Like, we knew that, right? And we knew we were going to probably have to run a little bit more to kind of set some things up. We knew we'd probably have a little bit more success in the run game after what Auburn did. And I guarantee they looked at that game plan and said, hey, we can do the same thing, which is definitely not true. Auburn's a weird team, and that's a weird game usually in that stadium. So I think when you look at kind of how our game plan was constructed, we thought we could run. We were stubborn with it. We should have backed off and threw a little bit more to maybe try to open some things up. And we did later in the game, probably a little too late in the game to open some things up and push the ball downfield, but it just wasn't meant to be. Brock Bowers he was probably 60% of Brock Bowers, but I'll say this: 60% of Brock Bowers is probably better than most tight end options out there, right? Um, Defensively, we had a lot of breakdowns in coverage. I still don't understand why we're not communicating very well. I think we're overloaded in the secondary, truthfully, with coverages and matching coverages with pressures. I think we're overloaded there, and we lose contact, especially when you're rotating a lot of guys in. Things get lost in translation, which means the consequence of that is Isaiah Bond is left wide open for big plays, big chunk plays. So going into not the Sugar Bowl, we're not playing in the Sugar Bowl, we're playing in the Orange Bowl against Florida State. Going into the Florida State game, I think we need to get back to basics, win up front, protect, and then just do our thing, right? Get in a rhythm, mix it up a little bit, right? Because early things. I'll break down Florida State, but you can't really break down anything until you know who's playing, who's not playing, who's opting out, who's staying. Like there's so many guys in the transfer portal. Like you just don't know what this team's going to look like. So an early look at the Orange Bowl would simply. I think Georgia's going to be double-digit favorites coming into it. First of all, because Florida State's on their backup quarterback, and our defense is what it is. I think with Carson Beck and some of the guys that are healthy and not opting out, I think that you will see. I think you'll see some big plays being made, like Oscar Delp. I think will be a big factor. Ra Thomas, I think, is guys that are looking for tape, guys that are looking to get evaluated. They're not going to opt out. Guys that are on the fringe of, like, let's say you're like potentially a 7th round guy and you want to jump into early 5th round or possibly a day 2 spot, you're going to play. You're going to play. You're going to get tape out there. And you're not going to opt out of this game because it's a meaningful opponent. And so when you do that, it's something that you got to look at. But once I get kind of once myself and Israel, who's not with us right now, once we kind of get an idea of who's opting out and who's actually going to play in this game, we'll probably get a more accurate breakdown. But I think just overall, defensively, I think you got to simplify it a little bit, right? I think you have to make sure your gap's down, put guys in position to make plays, right? That's the key to the game, right? You can scheme all you want, but if guys aren't there and they're not communicating, they're not there to make a play. And guess who's making the play? The other team, right? And there's some pressures and there's some things that where you're sacrificing a little bit of coverage to hopefully get home to the quarterback. And I think there's a few of those pressures in the SEC championship that we didn't get home on and left our guys out to dry. So some of that is on the front 7 not getting the pressure on the quarterback, which some of the schemes call for that, and some of the schemes call for max protection. So where you had Jalen Milroe basically making a ham sandwich back there while he was waiting on things to open up. So, but that's where I'm going to kind of leave it. We're going to preview the Florida State game more as we go. As news breaks with Dylan Raiola, we'll get you that information. As more things break with the portal, with the other guys in the portal, both incoming and outgoing. Once Etienne and Humphreys makes their decision, which I'm saying dog. Once they make their decisions, we'll let you know. We'll talk about it. We'll break it down. All of that in future episodes, and then once basketball starts their conference slate, we'll start digging into a little bit more basketball. They've been impressive. They've had a really nice non-conference slate. They're doing some really good things in recruiting as well. We're going to talk all of that once some of this portal and recruiting stuff is out of the way, and then we'll get more into that as we go. But I'm going to wrap that. I'm going to leave this right there. Dylan Raiola, it's going to come down to the wire. Unfortunately, I think he's leaning Nebraska after moving to Buford, after all of that. I think he's going to lean towards Nebraska. So hopefully Ryan Puglisi, I think is how you say his name. I'll have to learn how to say his name. I'm not there yet. I think he's going to have to be the guy, the factor. But he's a 5-star, so he's no slouch. He's not anything. He's not a backup guy. He's not a consolation prize, as you would say. He's actually a really good quarterback. So I think I'm excited about that. and excited about to see what's going to happen with the portal. And hopefully this thing just keeps on rolling. Trust in Kirby is always has been my motto since 2017. Trust in Kirby. He's going to get us in the right spots most of the time, which is what you want in this league, because everybody else is good too. So, but with that, I'm going to let you guys go. This is the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast on the Believe Network, presented by Betonline.ag. We'll see you back here next week, hopefully with Israel right beside me, and we'll talk about all of this and more. Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast on the Believe Network. But until then, go Dogs.